a little low. I'm sorry, I can't like adjust my camera better. So we're gonna start off with a story time on tonight's live, but the whole topic is going to be what the title was, Women's Right to Vote. This is why my time on Twitter, now called X, was very brief because of interactions such as the following. I Within a day, I feel like, of joining, saw Lisa Elizabeth. She is Tim Pool's booker. If you don't know who Tim Pool is, he is a very popular podcaster, I guess, YouTuber, and she's obviously I think it's safe to say she's right-leaning, but anyways, she made a post saying she taught her daughter, who was in the 4th or 5th grade, to believe that women shouldn't have the right to vote, that she's very proud of this, and she even showed a picture of a test where her daughter wrote in as an answer to a question that women shouldn't be able to vote, and the teacher wrote a great response back, trying to be as fair as possible with this girl who's obviously being fed these wacky ideas at home. So, of course, I had to go back and forth with her. I mean, it's Twitter, and she ends up telling me that women don't need the right to vote because before we even got the right to vote, we influenced changing the age of consent, meaning raising the age of consent. So that was why we don't need the right to vote because we did have some influence before we got the actual right to, which I think is really silly. And isn't that proof that we do need to be able to have that right if we want to influence the bad decisions that men are making, such as having age of consent being 10. It was as low as 10. So, red pill spaces have been promoting this idea. People in those spaces, such as Pearl Davis, often they say that men have to sign up for the draft and women do not, so it is not fair that women get to vote. Mind you, women sacrifice so much and risk their lives every day and have every day since 1973 to bring the future generation into the world. Not all women give birth, no, but not all men get drafted either. But way more women risk their lives giving birth than men ever have being drafted. And it's just evident that the sacrifice and risks that women take to birth are taken for granted, or else it would be, oh, they do this, they do so much, we're going to go protect them and our children if it's possible, if we need to. So, other nonsense they spew is people paying taxes, how many taxes you pay, if you're a net taxpayer or not. We all pay too many taxes. We're all getting taxed too much. Sometimes we pay taxes on something twice. We are all paying too many taxes. We all pay into the system with exception of very few. If you've ever tried to get assistance, it is so hard. You have to be so dirt poor to get assistance. I don't look down on those people. I'm just saying it's extremely difficult. People act like it's so easy to get on food stamps and welfare. It is not. And we all pay too many taxes. Even if you're renting, you're helping to pay property taxes. That's how I look at it. You're paying somebody else's property taxes. You are paying into the system. You are keeping our society afloat with the money you inject into it. Property ownership is also another measure they use, period. Not just property taxes, but owning the property, which some of these measures, it's like all of these measures, women are doing better than men in so many ways. So these male dominated red pill communities saying that we need to go by home ownership, income. These are areas where women are doing better and better than their male counterparts every year. Not to make it a contest, but if you're going to say who is better than the other, if you're going to try to take away some of our rights, if you want to compare the two and make them compete, we are doing better in a lot of ways. And we have had the disadvantage of being kept out of so many institutions for literally centuries and are still quickly catching up in the big scheme of things. And another, probably the biggest reason why people say that women shouldn't be able to vote is because we are more emotional than women. I'm sorry, we are more emotional than men, and we are not as logical as men. So men are very easily manipulated through lust. That's one thing. And men commit 89% of violent acts, that act of aggression is an emotion. They are emotional creatures. They just tend to be emotionally unavailable when it comes to attaching and bonding with other people. Not all of them, but a lot. Still, okay, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. Women couldn't own our own property until the 1870s, and we couldn't even borrow money from financial institutions until the 1970s. Still, we had to pay taxes whenever, the taxes were due. And I know income taxes weren't until a certain year. I meant to look that up, but whenever that came into effect for us regular people, we did that too. We paid those taxes. And then around the mid 1800s, abolitionist women saw a need to start a movement just for women because when they went into these abolitionist led rallies, they noticed they weren't being taken seriously by the male abolitionists. And it's kind of ironic when you think about everybody is there together because they all agree that humans are humans and should be treated as such. But then the women realize they're still being treated as second class citizens, even when they're rallying together with other humans to make sure that we start treating human beings as human beings. And then in 1848, at the Seneca Falls Convention, it officially started the women's suffrage movement. Around this time, many women began to voice how they felt since they raised children, they should have a part in how things and the things that affect them. They should have a say. And that's very logical, if you ask me. In the 1870s, Women's Temperance Union was formed, and that was born out of the need because the alcohol was such a problem and domestic violence, wasn't labeled as domestic violence. Women were begging men to stop paying all of their pay at the bar and stop being such bad alcoholics. It was an issue, and the two kind of joined forces, suffrage and temperance. And in the late 1800s, one notable figure, Dr. Martha Ripley, advocated to change Minnesota's age of consent from 10 to 14. She wanted it to be 18, but it got changed to 14. And I don't know if that's what Miss Lisa Elizabeth was speaking of or not, but she was definitely a suffragist that was fighting hard her whole adult life for women's right to vote. She opened a hospital for unwed mothers because back then, if you were giving birth, you weren't allowed in a hospital. You couldn't birth in a hospital if you were unwed. Her last words were, "How is everything at the hospital?" right before she passed away. She cared so much for other women. We are natural providers and protectors, women. We are natural leaders. Not all, but I'm saying we can be just as much as men can be. So, the suffrage movement lasted 70 years. Finally, our efforts in World War I got us to get our right to vote. They finally said, "Well, I think they've earned it, I guess." Oh my gosh, I can't. I knew that was bound to happen. I don't know how loud that was for you guys. Oh my goodness. And this is going to be a pain to edit out, but that was an acorn falling on this metal roof. It barely happens at night. Oh my gosh. So, Dr. Martha Ripley, she passed away just as all the founders of the suffrage movement had already passed, but long before their efforts were realized. As I said, it took 70 years to get our right to vote. There have always been women who fought hard for what was right. See the abolitionists, suffragists, there was always women that were against it. And this was in a documentary. The women who were against women having the right to vote tended to be very wealthy, aristocratic, and they saw themselves as trophies. Therefore, other women must be trophies and objects and treated as such. I guess in their minds, I'm speaking for them. But there was always women who spoke out against it, and that's something that people who say women shouldn't be able to vote today, that's like an excuse they use, like, that's a reason, like, women were so oppressed for so long. Yeah, some of them, like, they say that about slavery too. Unfortunately, some of them had nowhere to go. I don't think they sincerely wanted to stay slaves. They just literally had nowhere else to go. They never known any other life, and that's how a lot of oppressed women were and still are today. So, I wanna end it with when I was younger, politics were much more respectful. I remember my school teachers wouldn't even say what political party they were affiliated with. They would never tell us who they were gonna vote for, and now it's something that's spoken of so openly with so much divisiveness that I wish we could go back to the time where we don't even speak about it. It's something that's, like, impolite to talk about unless you are having a good, healthy, mindful debate. And this is something that gets brought up a lot. I know it's never gonna happen, us getting our right to vote taken away, but the fact that anybody does waste their energy, the fact that there's women out there teaching their children that women shouldn't be able to vote, that you're telling your daughters they are less than their male counterparts for whatever reason and shouldn't be able to take part in the system that they take part in every other way. I think that that's I say this, I don't wanna say shameful, but it is, it's shameful, and I hope that her daughter has a lot of other outside influences, and one day Lisa Elizabeth and people like her grow up and realize that this isn't cute. We have women that are getting their rights taken away in other parts of the world that can't go to school, losing their rights for education and their rights to be able to drive, their rights to be able to wear whatever they want to wear, and women who get to sit so comfortably in a country like ours, talking about getting how we shouldn't be able to vote, it's really something. It says a lot about how spoiled you are. You're one of those wealthy women that have nothing to do with your own life. So you want to be like lobsters in a bucket and tear other women down with you to your level and make sure nobody else succeeds and does more than you because it would make you feel bad about yourself seeing them do that. So this is all I have to say about this video. If you're wondering why I go live with these topics like this, probably nobody really was, but I only have data on my phone right now. We don't have the internet hooked up, so if I make a video longer than 7 minutes, I literally can't upload it, and so when I think something's gonna be longer than 7 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and just make the video, and it's actually prompted me to make more content because I'm not being so finicky and fickle with every single taking a million takes, so thank you for watching, I really appreciate it, I would love to get a conversation started in the comment section about this topic, and, like, let's keep it respectful. I don't care who you are voting for right now. I do think it's a super important election, but I just rather keep like opinions on that out. I mean, we can make jokes. Let's say that we can make jokes about what's going on because we have to laugh at it. But I really don't want this turned into, the right versus left. I think anybody who watches my content can pretty much tell what I lean towards, but I've been a registered independent since the age of 18. So I can see things from both sides, and I respect you no matter what, as long as you are respectful too. I hope you all have a good night. Bye.